Okay, another quick video here for you guys. Pretty excited about this one, to be honest with you. If you haven't guessed by now by looking at the box what's in here, I'm gonna go right ahead and show you. That's right. We've got the Demon Killer springs going on the Hellcat. If you don't know, if you're new to the channel, 2019 Charger Hellcat. This year is all about focusing on the 60-foot, getting those down. As you can see here, we've got the front and the rear springs here. We've got the car sitting up on jacks. Got all my tools scattered over there, ready for the job. So let's go ahead. Let's get these springs started. Okay, so we got the car all set up here. As you can see, here's the control arm. We're gonna be taking off this bolt and this bolt over here. I'm using the jack here to alleviate some of the pressure from the spring that we're going to be taking out. You're going to need an 18 millimeter and a 15 millimeter socket wrench for both the front and the rear of the control arm. Okay, we got our 15 on the front, 18 on the back. Let's get started. So if you guys look here, in order to get this bolt off, of course, you got to lower the exhaust. I happen to have clamps at the front of my muffler, so I was able to take the clamps off, undo my active exhaust switch here, disconnect it, and now we can finally get to taking this bolt off. Okay, so now we got that bolt out. We're slowly going to go ahead, lower the jack to bring the spring down. Okay, so here's sort of a side-by-side comparison. They look very similar, but if you do look closely, definitely a thinner gauge versus the factory. Yeah, the heights are basically the exact same. So we'll see how she's gonna look when she's all set in there. So this is the base of the spring. So you gotta make sure that you're going to place this correctly in this seat and then place it back onto the vehicle. So like I said, you gotta make sure you get the alignment down here and the alignment up top here. Same thing, twist it in place and you'll be good to go. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put the front bolt in now. This one here is a little bit of a struggle. You're gonna need to use the jack underneath to get the alignment and pry. So you get this through, use a hammer, or in my case I used a hammer to get it through. Now we're gonna go ahead and get it tightened up before we attempt the back bolt. Okay, so with a little bit of finesse, obviously you can see we're using the jack here to help me do the alignment to get the bolt in. So we were able to get the bolt in, a little bit of hammering, and just essentially screwed it through there. So I'm gonna go ahead, tighten it up. Okay guys, one final look before we go ahead and button her up. Nicely seated in there. Man, that color red just looks sharp, goes along with the theme of the car. But more importantly, should be great on the racetrack. Okay, we just decided to pull the car in the garage here as it was getting a little bit windy outside. Should be pretty straightforward on this one here. We'll be doing the upper control arm, the lower control arm, and sway bar end link. And it looks like just the strut, a bolt on the bottom and the bolt on the top. If you happen to own a Hellcat, like in this case we're doing, you can see things are gonna be a little bit more difficult as we're gonna have to remove these 3 bolts here, which shouldn't be too bad to get to that strut. And then if we come over here, looks like we're gonna have to remove the top of the reservoir here, which really shouldn't be that bad. So follow along and let's get these springs changed out. Let's start with removing the 18 millimeter bolt at the top of the control arm.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and break this bolt loose on the sway bar end link using a 21mm wrench. Now we can go ahead and use a 10mm wrench to remove the bolt on the sway bar end link.
So now we're going to go ahead and take the bottom bolt off the strut. It's going to be an 18mm. Okay, so we're at the top of the strut here. We're going to be needing a 13mm wrench and socket to get these ones off here. I'm going to loosen all three of them, and I'm going to leave just one on there.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove that top bolt, holding the strut in so that we can drop it out from down below.
Hey guys, so now that we got the strut out of the car here, we're going to go ahead and use this spring compression tool. We want to make sure it's even on both sides. And again, we've loosened the top here with an 18mm. I'm going to go ahead and compress the springs there and show you what it looks like when we're all done. Okay guys, so progress report. I was able to tighten down these clamps enough to get this head loose, so you can see the pressure's off the head. And also, I was able to lower it enough to get that lower bolt exposed, along with the upper. So it's a little bit tricky. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a progress report and see how we're doing. There we go guys, got the spring out, got the strut sitting here now. Let's go ahead, remove all the pressure off here, carefully, evenly on both sides, and get the new one installed. So guys, a little side-by-side comparison. For the most part, they look pretty similar. I do feel as though the drag springs, or the Demon Killer springs, are slightly taller. Gauge seems very similar, but I guess we'll find out once we get them installed. Okay guys, so as you can see, we were able to compress the springs quite a bit and able to get that strut on there again. Using the wrench and the ratchet on the top there, was able to compress it enough to get my wrench around that nut there in order to compress it and get that strut put back in place. So let's go ahead, loosen this up, and get this strut back in the car. There we go guys, we got those Demon Killer springs installed, nicely seated. We've got everything buttoned up here. I'm gonna have to go back in and double check all my torque specs on all the bolts. The one other thing I wanted to show you here is for the adaptive suspension. Is actually just behind this cover here. So as you can see, we removed a couple of the bolts here to get them this panel exposed. And then just hiding it behind the panel here, you can see here, right up top is where we're going to plug the adaptive cruise control switch back into there. And at the same time too, make sure that you disconnect your battery. So it looks like we're all done here guys. Once we get this buttoned up, we're going to go for a test drive. I'll let you guys know how I feel. One last side note here in case you were wondering. This is on the passenger side where our overfill is for the intercooler. Basically it's two 10mm bolts. Just lift it up here. I'll be able to slide underneath there and loosen those bolts. So really no concerns guys, in case you were wondering.
Here are a couple pictures I took. The smaller one is the original with the factory springs, and the larger photo is the one with the Demon Killer springs installed. As you can see, the ride heights are very similar, but I do feel as though the rear end with the Demon Killer springs does sit slightly lower.
So we're out in the Hellcat right now testing out the new springs that we just installed. The Demon
Demon Killer springs. And you know what? I gotta say I like them. The ride is definitely a little bit softer, not by much, but the one thing that I notice is the transition on acceleration. Really, it really does throw you back. I've done a couple rolls from about 50 miles an hour, and this car has never been able to hook. Mind you, it also has the 15-inch tires out back that are helping quite a bit, but this thing's hooking. This thing's hooking at 50 miles an hour, no problem. With my 17s, that was a struggle, and there was no chance with the 20s out back that this thing would hold together. So overall, the impression of these springs is really good. I think they're pretty much settled right now. I'm a little concerned about the amount of room on the back tires there. So far they have not rubbed. I put pieces of tape there, I've run markers, and there's been no rubbing going on. I'm assuming that the forces at the track are going to be much greater. So that will be the true test to see if I'm going to need to put some sort of a spacer or even switch over to coilovers. But right now I have to say I'm very happy with the Demon Killer springs. And that's basically it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care.